don't get caught up in comparing yourself to others. Don't do that. Don't get caught up in and you're looking at someone else, and from the outside looking in, it looks like they've got it all together and everything's perfect. Like, don't do that. You know yourself, trust your close friends, mentors, and let that be the reflection of kind of who you are and help instill that confidence.
Welcome to Mission of Missions. I'm your host, Jeremy Tears. This is the show designed to help you grow, both professionally and personally, in the fast-paced world of higher education. Every other Tuesday, I sit down with senior leaders, new professionals, and difference makers from across higher ed and beyond, where we'll share tips and strategies related to challenging topics like student recruitment, leadership, customer service, enrollment marketing, and time management. So if you're looking for practical advice and conversations that actually move the needle, this show's for you. Grab your notepad or fire up your notes app, and let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Jeremy Tears, and this is episode 88 of the Mission Admissions podcast. And my guest today is one of my dear friends who also happens to be a fellow member of the Crossroads crew. If you've never heard of our little group, there's 5 of us. We're all in the higher ed consulting space. We just happen to be great friends. And if you go to YouTube, for example, and type in the @ symbol and then Crossroads crew as one word, you'll find our homepage where you can watch the replays of all of the First Friday shows that we've done since we started that fun little project back in January. The First Friday show is full of, quite honestly, all kinds of tips and strategies, just like this podcast that I think, help people personally and professionally. And so we also have some unfiltered fun, and we bring on some special guests. So if you enjoy the podcast here, I encourage you to check that out because I think you'll enjoy that as well. So Soup, welcome to the show, my friend. I am excited to dive into the topics of self-confidence, self-improvement, and just kind of career growth. You ready to get into it?
Let's do it, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on the show.
Here's where I want to start. I've been having a lot of conversations, Soup, quite honestly, with people from all levels, senior VPs down to, I had this conversation last month with an admissions counselor who was probably 6 months into her first year. The topic of self-confidence, where do you think each of us gets our self-confidence from?
Yeah, it's a great question. I know for me personally, and I don't know if this is the same for everyone out there, but I think a lot of this actually starts very, very early in our lives. My mom was so instrumental in my life in those early formative years. Some people may not realize this. I am biracial, so I come from a family where I, have a father who's Black. My mom is white. I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, and so you navigate some things as a biracial kid in rural Western Kentucky growing up. But I had a mom that was she instilled in me, you never take a back seat. You always have a place. You are valuable. You are smart. I mean, she was an amazing teacher. And so I think just like really a lot of that started from early childhood, having parents that just really built that into you. And so I think for me, just personally, that's where I think a lot of my self-confidence today, it just goes back to how she prepared me very early in my childhood.
It's interesting you say that because I agree with everything you said there. And I wonder, because I get this, question all the time, Soups. People will say, well, Jeremy, if I don't have that kind of confidence, if that wasn't instilled in me, or what about if the opposite was instilled in me, which is, I have a lot of negativity, right? Or I've been told I'm not good enough, or I need to do better, right, my whole life. And so I don't have that level of, real confidence. What would you say to somebody, Soup, in terms of like understanding then, like, how do I navigate from saying, well, I'm kind of trying to fake it, for lack of a better term, and I really don't want to do that? Like, where do I start if I feel like my confidence, I'll say, is at a low enough level to where I know it's negatively impacting, for example, my day to day, whether it's my work, it's my relationships with friends, family, whatever it is?
Yeah, I would encourage anyone that feels like that, find a close, maybe it's a very small group. Jeremy, you mentioned at the beginning, like we have our Crossroads crew, there are 5 of us. Find a really small group that truly knows you very well, knows you inside and out, someone that you really trust, and listen to what they have to say about you. Listen to the encouragement that they give you. Listen to the things that they talk about with your professional career and what you've done and what you're capable of doing and your value. um, that's what I would say right away, because it's easy to get caught up in other outside voices that maybe they don't really know who you are. Maybe it's a boss you report to that you feel like, well, I don't even know if the boss really even knows who I am, but has all these views about me and it's making me question my own personal confidence. No, listen to the people that really truly know you, and then not just listen, but believe them. Believe what they tell you and take that to heart. And so that's what I would encourage anyone that's struggling with that, that's feeling like they just naturally didn't get that, maybe from parents or anywhere else. I know everyone out there's got a close friend, a close mentor that certainly can provide that for them.
Again, I couldn't agree more and punctuate what Soup just said more. By the way, if you hear me referring to him as Soup, that is his nickname. We'll get into where that comes from later, but your real name obviously is Harrison, but we're going to keep probably saying Soup for anybody who's like, why is he calling him Soup? I will say a couple of things on that, Soup. I feel like there's a lot of the same things related to self-confidence that go into this idea of like when we get burned out, right? Like what helps us get through burnout? Well, a bunch of things, reconnecting with our why is helpful, but I also think finding our people, right? Like you just talked about. And so, yeah, I think at any point in your career professionally, if you feel like you need a pick me up, please find somebody. If it's not in your office, if it's a family member, if it's a friend, like that is so important because to your point, Soup, a lot of times it's people who don't truly know what you're dealing with. And we listen to those opinions. And I get it. We all do that, right? But I think you have to have confidence in yourself, right? If you're truly going to be confident and display the confidence that's going to allow you to, I'll say, move forward personally and professionally, right?
Yeah, and don't get caught up in comparing yourself to others. You're looking at someone else, and from the outside looking in, it looks like they've got it all together and everything's perfect. Like, don't do that. You know yourself, trust your close friends, mentors, and let that be the reflection of kind of who you are and help instill that confidence.
We all have moments in our life, Soup, and you and I were talking about this right before we started recording, where like we're going to get shaken, we're going to have challenges. And again, trying to navigate those with other people is so much easier, right, than it is trying to navigate it yourself. And so I'm curious, you remember a moment in your professional career, Soup, that you're comfortable sharing where, your self-confidence or your confidence in general was like just shaken? And like, what did you do in that moment to kind of help rebuild it?
Yeah, I've got a great story behind that, something that comes to mind. So I don't know if everyone knows this about me, but in a previous life, I was a former secondary social studies teacher. I actually taught, middle school, high school for several years before I transitioned over to higher ed. But there was a day that kind of changed everything for me, and I was teaching U.S. history. I had a group of juniors that were in that class, and we were getting to where we were getting ready to talk about the Civil War. And one of my students completely surprised me, came in one day and said, Mr. Campbell, you're not going to believe this, but my family, we have, and I can't remember how many great, great, greats it is, but her great, great, however many grandfather served in the Civil War, but not only served in the Civil War, she had his handwritten daily journal from his whole experience. And so, of course, this blew my mind. And so I started each day to begin class. I would read from like that day, from her, her great great grandfather's stories that were in this journal. And Jeremy, I kid you not, for the first time, I had students that didn't care a thing about US history that were sprinting to get to class, that did not want to miss what I would read. And they would beg, read another day, read another day. And so, long story short, it was so fascinating to see students excited about learning. And one day my principal came in to do kind of those in the classroom evaluations where teachers were going to get evaluated. And it happened to be one of those days where we were kind of going through the journal and reading a little bit. And afterwards, I had my meeting with him, and he said, "Hey, Soup, like it's wonderful, kind of how you're incorporating this in, but really, I just need you to stay focused on the standards, your curriculum, stay focused on the lesson plan, make sure we're getting the students prepared for their standardized tests." And Jeremy, in that moment, one, I felt crushed. But in that moment, I just knew I'm not going to be able to do this because I really want to teach. And now I just discovered that this isn't what I thought teaching was going to be. And so I literally in that moment knew I wasn't going to be able to keep doing this because it just crushed, me so bad. So I think that was one where I was kind of really shaken a little bit just in my confidence of like, I thought this was going to be my career. I thought this was going to be my future. And now this doesn't seem like it's going to be it. It would be months later, down the road that I stumbled into this entry level admissions counselor position at Indiana State University where, there were some transferable skills from being a teacher in the classroom. And so my career shifted. And I think that's what started to rebuild. I think once I fell into higher ed and I was still involved in education, still working with students, some of that confidence got to be rebuilt a little bit. Seeing my new colleagues, encouraging me and giving me opportunities once I started, in that role certainly helped build that confidence back up.
Do you have a process now, Soup, for just, I'll say, how you do self improvement? Meaning, like, I know for me, for example, at the end of each week, I literally spend most weeks, it's 15 minutes or less, but I kind of play back, right, the last 7 days. And I ask myself a handful of questions, right? Like, what went well for me? What did I suck at this week? Where did I not achieve things that I was trying to get done? And like, what do I need to be thinking about or do differently next week? But like, I'm curious for you, what's your process when it comes to saying, all right, if I want to continue as you're in the, I'll say the second half of your career, much like I am, like what's your process for self improvement? Do you have one?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what you just said. And I think one of the things that I had to learn to do, I just get busy and I'm doing things. And so I think I've learned, build it, like put it on your calendar. So, like, if I want to have a time each week at the end of the week to do kind of a debrief of that week, if you don't put it on the calendar, if you don't have that as an hour or how much time you want to dedicate to it, it'll get taken, the place will get taken by something else. Something else will fill that spot. So I think for me, trying to always have things on the calendar blocked out to be able to do that self-reflection, that assessment, is really key. So very similar to what you do as well, Jeremy.
I feel like that's a habit. That's the easiest way to like, call what you just said. I mean, a process, a habit. So I would also then be curious to know, Soup, talk to me about a habit that you feel like maybe you didn't have. And then at some point, once you made it a habit, like, oh my God, Jeremy, it's had a massive impact on my life.
Yeah, well, I've got one, but I also have lost the habit here over the past few months. So the habit needs to get kind of reinstated. But about a year ago, I really got committed to running consistently with a plan, building towards something. And just exercise in general, I think is very, very underrated. I don't think we always understand how exercise impacts other areas of our life from just our mental, our clarity, thinking, just, I mean, our moods, like everything benefits from when we're actively focused on doing some physical exercise for our bodies. And so for me, it really was running. I mean, it just everything, all other aspects of my life improved from me giving that time to running. So I would just encourage anybody out there listening, if you're not actively right now doing some form of just exercise, staying focused on your physical self. I'm getting ready to have a birthday here, getting ready to turn 50. I'm not getting any younger. The older we get, I think the more important it is to focus on the physical health. And so definitely would encourage everybody to find something you can do consistently, stick with it, let it create that habit, and build that into your life.
All right, time for a quick break to share about something big happening this summer. If you're tired of the same old conference buzz and you want real playbooks and real momentum, I encourage you to make it to Charlotte, North Carolina for the Engage Summit 2026 this June 15th to 17th. The Engage Summit is where you can take the next step towards building the agentic campus with strategies you can start implementing today, workshops that sharpen your skills, and a community dedicated to transforming how higher ed supports and serves students. Whether you lead enrollment, student success, marketing, or tech, this is where higher ed stops talking about AI and starts implementing it. And the best part? Enrollify listeners like you can grab a ticket for 50% off. Yes, you heard me right, half off. Just head to engage.element451.com and use the promo code Jeremy50, Jeremy 50. Register now and build what's next. Now, let's get back to the show. So anybody who knows you, Soup, I would argue, would say you'd be an extremely positive person, myself included, right? Where do you think your positivity comes from?
Oh man, that is a great question. Jeremy, a lot of this comes from just the realization of knowing, ultimately our time on this earth is just so short. And, we only have certain moments in life. We only have certain moments in certain careers and jobs and we need to treat it like it's precious, right? And the interactions, the relationships that we have. I told a younger admission counselor a while back, this might have been a couple years ago. He had this incredible connection with one of the other admission counselors on the team. And it so reminded me of an admissions counselor that started on the same day I started at Indiana State. And we just had this very unique bond, and we're still extremely close friends today. She no longer works in admissions. And what I was telling this younger admission counselor, like, I want you to know you should just savor every moment you have in this, because like in your eyes right now, you may think this is going to exist forever. But at some point, one of you may go in a different direction. And sure enough, one of those two is not in admissions now. And it's just, keeping that positivity, seeing, again, I am one of those, the glass, see it half full. You can always find a positive and a negative. Life is better than that. We're in a world today where so much, it's so easy to do the doom scrolling and the focus on all the negative. And I'm not. I'm going to focus on the great things that are happening, the good things that are happening. And I just think for me personally, that's a healthier way to live for me, to stay in a positive mindset versus always focusing on the negative things.
Give me one uncomfortable truth about personal growth that you think maybe people don't talk about enough, but yet we probably should think about or talk about more.
Yeah, I've got a great one for this, Jeremy. And to me, it's failure matters. I'll say that again. Failure matters. And, an uncomfortable truth about personal growth is that you don't just risk failure, you actually need it to move forward. And I know that certainly has been true in my own experience. But in our professional journey, we never really talk about it. We don't, there's a stigma around it. We don't want to talk about, we don't want to share that we've been fired from a previous position, or we don't want to share that, like, I started somewhere, it was horrible, it was awful, it was the wrong fit. I knew I had to resign and do something different. It's like we're afraid to talk about those things. So everyone out there listening to this right now that's gone through something like that feels like they're the only one that's gone through something like that. And they're not. Most of us, have experienced something like that during our careers. So what I've learned over the years is that, you don't grow by avoiding failure. You grow by becoming someone who can use it and leverage it to move forward. And even when you go through one of those valleys where you feel like you're completely defeated, you feel like you failed, there's going to be another opportunity. You can learn from, you can grow from that. And so I think, to me, failure actually really matters for us to move forward and grow in our life and in our careers.
Agreed. And so talk to us more a little bit about that, Soup. What got you to the point where you became comfortable? Because clearly you're comfortable, but I'm curious, like, when did that happen? Do you even remember? Or has it always been like that? Like, what has got you comfortable with the idea of, I know I have to fail and like that's going to be just fine?
I've never been afraid to try something knowing it could fail. I just never have. And so, I will try something without any, and some people aren't like that. Some people are a little too afraid to try something because they're worried, well, if I fail, what will this cost me? And so I think, for me personally, I just was never afraid to try and fail because I think I always know, even in that failure, there will be something else that will come. And then I think you learn from those things. And if I look back at my career, Jeremy, the times when I've gone through situations like that, the seasons where I've grown the most are because of those situations. And so I would not be here where I am today were it not for making mistakes or trying something and failing. And so, yeah, you can't be afraid to try things and fail. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you can learn, grow, and move on from it.
And adding on to what Soup just said, I would argue, as someone who's worked with a lot of senior leaders and even helped mentor, a lot of people into senior leadership roles, you will move up the org chart faster the quicker you become comfortable, like Soup said, with failure, because it just allows you to have the experiences where you start learning things, right? Things that make you better, whether it's a better leader, better friend, better colleague, better at this skill, like whatever it is. And so, I would love to dive in for a few minutes on career advice, Soup, because, you and I were joking about this the other day, but it's the reality. Both of us are on the back nine, right,
Yeah.
of our professional careers now. I think I'm probably a whole ahead of you by just a year or two, but we're both right there. And so, um, talk to us a little bit about just like if you're talking to somebody, and I'm sure you probably had this kind of conversation, Soup, over the years, like, oh, Soup, I feel stuck and I don't know what I want to do. And I kind of like my job and I kind of think I'm ready for something more, but I don't really know if I'm ready to leave yet. And I just like, what advice would you give to somebody who's kind of like stuck and doesn't really know, all right, how should I be thinking about my own development and like what I want next out of wherever I'm at in my personal career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing I would say is to do what so many other professionals in the industry have done over the past few years, and that's send me a message on LinkedIn. Let's hop on a Zoom and let's talk about it. And so if it's not me, find that mentor that you have, find that trusted person, that colleague, and have a conversation. Start to talk. Get some feedback from someone that you really trust, that you value, and that can give you some good wisdom and some good advice. But the one thing that I want to remind everyone listening right now is to understand this truth, and that is that your value can be perceived differently based on where you are. So if you're in a current place of employment and that place isn't fully recognizing your value, that's one of those times where maybe it's worth exploring a new location that will.
And so if it's not a value thing, Soup, if I'm listening to this and I feel like, I feel like my boss and I feel like my colleagues value me, they listen to me, they ask me for my opinions and they value my feedback. How do you know then, Soup, if you're ready for more or ready for a position of leadership? Like what is it that ultimately do you think is that light bulb moment for a lot of
Yeah.
us?
Well, there's a couple things there, right? I think every place you are, there will be a ceiling. There will be, I mean, depending on what your personal goals are, depending on what you're trying to achieve in your career, you may hit a ceiling at a certain place, even when everything's perfect, when everything's great and you've got great value and the team loves what you're doing and all those things. You may still hit a ceiling and you can't really move any higher. And if you have those aspirations, well, then, staying there isn't going to allow you to achieve some of the goals that you have. And so I think that certainly can happen. And that's not a bad situation because everything's great, but again, there can be hesitancy there, right? Like I'm comfortable. Everything here is wonderful. This is an incredible position. I am taken care of, and that's fine. But if you start to get that kind of nudge where it's like, but I really think with my skill, talent, ability, experience, I really think I could even be doing this. Well, if you know that that opportunity just isn't going to be able to present itself where you currently are, then the alternative is I've got to start thinking where else could I go to achieve that? And so that's what I would say to that point.
if you could give your younger self, or you could give somebody in their 20s, 30s, maybe they're even in their like late 30s, or they're about to turn 40, like a piece of either personal or career advice, just something that over the years has really kind of clicked for you. And gosh, I wish I had known that back then. Like, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a very, very good question. Gosh, there's probably so many things I would tell
First
my
one that
younger
comes to
self.
mind.
Yeah. I would tell my younger self to listen more to those who were where I aspired to be. And I think what I mean by that is, when I was younger, I was very stubborn. Again, always had that chip on my shoulder. I kind of had this mindset of, these people in these leadership roles, like, first off, I know they don't even have my talent and my ability. So who are they to kind of tell me what, can and can't be done? I, probably had this mindset of I know more than them. I was one of those kind of people, Jeremy, that like was very much visionary. I could see ahead. I could see the way things would work once I built them. So like I always just move forward with projects. I always just move. I didn't wait for somebody to tell me what I could or couldn't do. I just did, whether I had permission or not, because ultimately I knew that I could produce amazing results, whether they could see it or not. But I think when I look back, through a lot of that, I know it probably caused a lot of unnecessary friction, with leadership and you know those things. So I just think, and again, I made a lot of mistakes, during those times too. And so I think I would just tell myself, that being a rebel and breaking all the rules isn't the only path to get to where I am today. Now, would I go back and change anything and do it differently? No, because it has allowed me to get to where I am today. But I would tell myself there are other paths to get there, and you don't necessarily have to be, causing all the friction and being the rebel with the chip on your shoulder and not listening to leadership. That's what I would tell my younger self.
The last thing I do on every episode, Soup, is something I call fun rapid fire. But
Oh boy.
before we do fun rapid fire, Soup has some breaking news that some of you may not have heard yet that I'm going to let him share.
Yes, well, I mean, it's crazy. I've been in a role at Ardeo Education Solutions, which has been absolutely phenomenal. Loving the work that we've been doing there. I actually told Peter, who's my boss there, who is wonderful, kind of in my final interview, I kind of told him, I'm like, Peter, I want you to know there's this very specific kind of career opportunity, a role that I've been aspiring to, that I've, really have been wanting to work towards for several years. And I told him, I'm like, hey, just so you know, if that ever comes along, that would be the only thing that would probably pull me away from Ardeo. And sure enough, I kid you not, Jeremy, it's funny how God works in very mysterious ways. You get a LinkedIn message from the CEO and kind of one of your friends at a company in our space that kind of floats an idea out there, and sure enough, it's led to a new opportunity where I have joined NextGrad as their chief growth officer, which is just phenomenal. And I'm very excited about that opportunity. And NextGrad's at a place right now where they're just ready. They're solid, incredible foundation. So yes, that's the breaking news. And one of my colleagues was just joking with me via text, and he was like, "Man, the portal era, the portal is open, and Soup's, looking at that NIL." So, but in all seriousness, I'm very, very grateful and very thankful to have this opportunity and all the opportunities I've had over the years. And I'm going to keep serving Ardeo. I'll be in the behind the scenes, kind of one of their affiliates, still helping to move the company forward. So not completely closing the chapter there, but very, very excited to be headed to NextGrad.
Congratulations, my friend. I'm excited to see what you do next with NextGrad. So let's dive into this fun rapid fire. All right. I told people earlier your nickname is Soup. So I have to, of course, ask you then, what is your favorite kind of soup?
Oh gosh, it probably varies. Again, I there's all different kinds I like. I think when I'm sick and not feeling well, it goes back to that childhood where, mom just gave you the chicken noodle and a Sprite. And so like when I'm not feeling good, I love chicken noodle soup, but I've actually grown to love, a good tomato soup when I've got my grilled cheese sandwich. So I'm not picky, Jeremy. I like them all.
Where's the place, Soup, you really want to take your Jeep because you're a Jeep guy and go off roading?
Oh my gosh. Yes, and I do love getting the Jeep. off-road, even though a lot of my friends say that my Jeep is a pavement princess and I don't even like getting dirt on it. The Rubicon Trail. So, and that's actually one of the names of Jeeps is the Rubicon version, but there's a Rubicon Trail that is the pinnacle of where every Jeep owner would love to get out and see if their Jeep could handle that trail.
You're a University of Kentucky fan, so which UK team is more likely to win their next conference championship first, the football team or the men's basketball team?
Well, honestly, with the way things have been at basketball the past few years, and thinking with our new football coach there at UK, and is there a blueprint to try to be the next Signetti? Like, is that possible? You know what? I'm going to go out on this crazy limb and say football. I know that's probably not realistic, but I'm going to say football.
What would be harder for you to accomplish at this point in your life? Riding around on rollerblades or swimming the butterfly stroke?
Oh, the heart of it. So I don't. You must have not have known this, Jeremy, but I did a lot of rollerblading back in the day, and I'm talking like
You're also
aggressive. Like,
49 now.
oh, dude, I don't. I'll go put them on right now and go out there and do some jumps and probably kill myself. There's no way I could do butterfly stroke. And I'm a good swimmer and I love to swim, but butterfly that's ridiculously hard.
Agreed. Last one. What's the coolest gift you've ever received from a college partner over the years?
Oh my gosh. Ooh. I can remember, and I can't remember the college that sent it actually, which is surprising, but it was one of the first times that like some VR stuff was coming out, and a school had produced a really kind of neat kind of VR thing that like would show kind of like their, campus tour in a unique way. And I just thought I had never seen that kind of technology used in that way before, and I thought that was one of the coolest things that I had ever experienced or seen. That was kind of a neat gift.
I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. I think our conversation is an extremely important one for anybody listening, whether you, again, are a senior level person or you are brand new to higher ed or whatever industry you work in. And so just take the time. I would encourage you to take things Soup talked about today and just make sure if you're not prioritizing that, you find a way to prioritize it, make things a habit, be willing to fail. I mean, when you feel like you're ready for a new opportunity, don't be afraid to go for it. I mean, the worst that's going to happen is it's not going to work out for you. And guess what? There's going to be another opportunity waiting there for you. And so I just appreciate everything that you shared today, my friend. And as always, I can't wait until the next time we get to spend some time with each other.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Appreciate you having me on. Always enjoy our time together.
Thanks for listening to Mission Admissions. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's the largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.